Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. In the quiet town of Maplewood, nestled between thick forests and winding rivers, the sun set with a soft, golden hue that painted the streets in a tranquil light. This picturesque facade masked the darker undercurrents that thrummed just beneath the surface. At one chilling autumn evening, the facade would shatter. Whoa. As the leaves danced to the ground, Emily Thompson, a beloved local librarian, made her routine journey home from the library, her thoughts drifting to the book club meeting she was set to host later that week. She often marveled at how a quaint town like Maplewood could seem so detached from the world's chaos. Yet, unbeknownst to Emily, trouble lurked in the shadows. Her footsteps echoed against the cobblestone streets as she strolled past the quaint, familiar storefronts. The storefronts were locked up for the night, leaving only the whispers of the wind to accompany her. When she reached the park, she often took a moment to pause, breathing in the crisp autumn air. But this time, as she leaned against the metal railing of the bridge overlooking the murky stream, she felt something was amiss. A rustle from the nearby bushes jerked her attention. Momentarily startled, Emily reassured herself that it could be nothing more than a wandering animal. Brushing off the unsettling feeling, she resumed her walk. But the sound had ignited a sense of unease, a foreboding instinct that would soon prove to be eerily prophetic. Little did she know, the embrace of night would bring a shroud of darkness that would envelop the town, forever altering its fate. The victim. The following morning, Maplewood awoke to a crisp, fog-laden dawn that draped the town in an eerie stillness. The birds had yet to sing, and the streets were deserted, save for the occasional flicker of headlights sweeping through the haze. As the sun clawed its way higher into the sky, the fog began to lift, revealing the hard truth that had taken root overnight. Emily's absence was noticed at the library, but it wasn't until 2 hours after opening that her missing status became alarming. Penny Caldwell, her co-worker and close friend, paced anxiously behind her desk, glancing repeatedly at the clock on the wall. "She's usually early," Penny murmured to herself. The serenity of her morning was shattered as the hours crawled by without Emily's familiar face gracing the stacks of books. By midday, worry morphed into desperation. Penny made the decision to drive down the very road Emily took home the previous evening. As her car glided through the streets, she recalled the way Emily often spoke of her love for Maplewood, how it was a safe haven, a place where friends turned into family. But there was no comfort on this day as she reached the park, where the air hung heavy with an unspoken concern. Penny parked her car and stepped onto the path, scanning the area. Her pulse quickened when she noticed a gathering near the bridge, the same one Emily had crossed the night before. Approaching cautiously, dread filled her heart when she saw the yellow police tape flapping in the breeze. There was a huddle of officers, their voices low and grave, yet she could pick out snippets of conversation punctuated by the occasional crackle of a radio. As the crowd grew, a figure emerged through the fog, and Penny's worst fears began to materialize. The body of Emily Thompson lay motionless just beyond the bridge, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that had once illuminated the town. The photographs of Emily's smiling face that adorned on the library's bulletin board transformed from joyful reminders into haunting images of who Maplewood had lost. All the warmth of the town plunged into chilling silence, and the unwelcome seeds of sorrow began to spread through the community. The crime scene. The mood in Maplewood shifted as the sun climbed higher, casting an unsettling brightness over the scene. The normally bustling atmosphere was replaced with hushed conversations and anxious whispers. The park, a place that had always been a sanctuary for its residents now, held a palpable tension. Detective Alex Reynolds arrived at the crime scene, his breath visible in the crisp air as he stepped out of his car. He took a moment to gather himself, knowing this would be a delicate investigation, one that would require the utmost sensitivity. With years of experience under his belt, the shiver that coursed through him upon seeing Emily's lifeless form was familiar, yet no less chilling. She lay crumpled at the edge of the path, her scarf pulled tight around her neck, a vibrant contrast to the mud and fallen leaves that enveloped her. The investigators methodically combed the area, taking care to preserve any evidence that could shine light on what horrific event had unfolded here. The sound of cameras snapping filled the air, documenting every detail, every piece of footwear or piece of fabric. Detective Reynolds noticed a small scuff mark on the nearby railing, suggesting there had been a struggle. He leaned in closer, his breath catching at the sight of dark crimson stains blood toe, the untrained eye. They may have blended in with the mottled timber, but to Reynolds they shouted of violence. He glanced around, noting the proximity of the woods that framed the park. "Get Eric on the ground," he instructed one of his team members. "We need to search for anything, clothing, discarded items, anything out of the ordinary." As the investigation began, the tight-knit community stood in apprehensive clusters, glancing towards the police as if expecting answers. What struck Reynolds was the notion that Emily's murder would not just reveal the darkness that resided within a person, but would also unveil the hidden fractures within Maplewood itself. It became clear a part of the town's innocence had been stolen, and finding the perpetrator meant confronting the truth of the community's own vulnerabilities. The early investigation. The investigative team worked tirelessly through that first day, piecing together every fragment of evidence they could find. Detective Reynolds coordinated efforts, directing officers to canvass the neighborhood, speak with residents, and collect any surveillance footage from nearby business. In the heart of Maplewood, each lead felt urgent a small thread that could unfurl into a vital tapestry of information. As the hours slipped away, two of Reynolds' team members, Officers Harris and Kim, returned from their preliminary interviews with residents near the park. Their faces bore the traces of the haunting task they had just executed. "Most didn't notice anything unusual last night," Officer Harris reported, rubbing the back of his neck in frustration. "Some mentioned seeing Emily walking home, but no one saw or heard anything after that." Reynolds sighed, rubbing his temples. He knew the town well. It thrived on communication, even gossip, and for that many neighbors didn't notice anything out of place was disheartening. That's when a potential break appeared in the logistics of the investigation. A nearby diner had a security camera that overlooked the entrance to the park. "Let's get a unit over there," Reynolds said, the glimmer of hope sparking just enough clarity in his otherwise clouded mind. "We need to see what they record." The diner owner, a stout man named Frank, was quick to assist. As they settled into the back room, the flickering screen unveiled a dimly lit scene that wrapped around the edges of the park. Though grainy, the footage showed people quietly going about their business, seemingly oblivious to what was unfolding in the deeper shadows. Then, there it was, a figure lingering near the entrance of the park, hands stuffed deep in pot. The timestamp indicated the figure remained there for an uncomfortably long moment, framing their silhouette against the fading light. Reynolds leaned in, heart racing. The figure turned just as Emily entered the frame. Detective Reynolds felt a surge of adrenaline. This could be the crucial clue they needed. "What do we know about this person?" he asked, voice steadier than he felt. Harris furrowed his brow. "I'll have the tech team enhance the image." Harris furrowed his brow. "If we can ID them, it could lead us closer to finding Emily's killer." As they left the diner, Reynolds could feel the town's unease pressing against him. The weight of Emily's fate hung heavily in the air as the sun began to set once more, the shadows shortening into the gathering darkness. In Maplewood, it would be a night haunted by questions. Who was this figure? Who was this figure? And would they still be lurking, hidden in the very heart of a town that once seemed so safe? The dead ends. As the days wore on, Maplewood tightened into an uncomfortable stillness, its residents grappling with the reality that a murderer dwelled among them. Detective Reynolds and his team sifted through leads, but the tantalizing glimmers of hope soon gave way to frustration. The enhanced footage revealed little beyond the figure's size and general clothing. A dark hoodie and jeans obscured any distinctive features. Reynolds felt an ache of urgency in his chest. This was not just a murder to be solved, but a growing fear that clouded the community's mood. Town hall meetings, filled with frightened murmurs and misplaced accusations, became increasingly contentious. Reynolds stood at his desk, reviewing the scattered reports and notes that swirled around him. Each potential lead interviews with Emily's acquaintances, her social media history, and potential enemies proved to yield little more than stale information and dead ends. Her life had been characterized by kindness and warmth, devoid of underlying tensions or threats. As he flicked through the reports once more, he halted, staring intently at one entry. Emily's recent argument with a longtime friend, Laura Mitchell. Determined, Reynolds called for Laura. When she arrived, her demeanor was visibly strained, a tightness pulling at her lips. "I didn't think it was serious," she said, her voice wavering. "It was just a misunderstanding, and we hadn't talked in a week." "What was the fight about?" Reynolds pressed, watching her closely. "Book's our favorite author. Just released new ones and, well, she borrowed a set of mine. And they don't know. It got out of hand," Laura stammered, brushing away a tear. "I would never hurt Emily. She was my best friend." Reynolds felt a pang of sympathy, but clarity was paramount. He needed answers. "Did you see anyone near her that night?" And eyes wide with confusion. Laura shook her head, her eyes wide. With each encounter, he found the same fearful faces, the same lack of direction. Gathering fragments from friends and witnesses, he sensed the threads of a larger narrative slipping away, the connections he hoped for dissipating like mist in the morning sun. As nightfall fell, the heaviness of his task settled around him. The answers were eluding him, and every dead end dragged him deeper into frustration. In a town where secrets were scarce and closeness prized, it was becoming increasingly evident that shadows lingered, hiding truths, obstacles, and perhaps the killer themselves. Reynolds knew that the longer he lacked a lead, the more it would feel like the darkness in Maplewood was devouring him whole. A break in the case. Despite the weight of dead ends pressing down on him, Detective Reynolds refused to succumb to despair. He spent night after night poring over Emily's life. The inviting warmth of the library she cherished served as an oppressive reminder of what had been taken from the community. In the early hours of another bleak morning, a breakthrough emerged unexpectedly, a gentle nudge from fate, or perhaps sheer determination. While reviewing call logs from Emily's phone, Reynolds noticed a peculiar number listed under her missed call. It had been recorded shortly before she was last seen. Curiosity piqued. He had the tech team trace the number, uncovering its connection to an out-of-town acquaintance named Marcus Tatia Man. Emily had just recently reconnected with on social media. Though they hadn't met in person for years, he had hinted at visiting Maplewood soon. Determined to uncover more, Reynolds coordinated with officers to reach out to Marcus. They quickly learned he had checked into a local motel the day before Emily's murder. The horizon burst open with possibility, and for the first time in days, Reynolds felt something akin to hope swell in his chest. When Marcus was brought in for questioning, he appeared nervous but cooperative. "I just wanted to see her again," he said, a hint of regret in his voice. "We had so many good times back in school. I thought maybe we could rekindle our friendship." As he spoke, Reynolds monitored his body language, searching for inconsistencies. "Tell me about the night you arrived. Did you meet with Emily?" Marcus's brow furrowed, the tension in his face betraying his unease. "No, I texted her a couple of times. I was running late, and she never responded. I assumed she was busy, so I went to grab a bite by myself at the diner." Digging deeper, Reynolds pressed him to recall his interactions. "Did you see anyone outside the diner? Anyone lurking around the park?" No. There were other cars in the lot, but I was focused on my phone," Marcus replied, his gaze flickering nervously to the door. Reynolds sensed a fracture in his story, but knew that the evidence needed to be solid, not speculative. Yet the pieces were beginning to fit, however loosely. The idea that this familiar face might have been involved sent jolts of energy coursing through him, the potential of reopening relationships long buried in childhood. Suspicion moved the investigation forward. As Marcus left the interrogation room, Reynolds felt an electric thrill run through the pit of his stomach. The shadowy figure near the park might finally have a name. The investigation that had floundered in darkness now flickered with a spark of possibility. He needed to tread carefully, it was clear. There were still layers to uncover, but for the first time, hope surged like a beacon breaking through the cloud. Maplewood might not be completely bereft of light after all. The suspect. The hours stretched languorously as Detective Reynolds reviewed the information surrounding Marcus Tate. Memories flickered through his mind, faces of high school acquaintances, and the laughter echoing through classrooms, replaced by the stark realities of the present. When information was scarce, he found comfort in the familiarity of the past. But now, the further he dug into Marcus's life, the more questions began to loom. Research revealed that Marcus had a history of troubling behavior. His social media hinted at unreciprocated affections for women who brushed him aside. The heart-wrenching photos of past friendships lay scattered across his accounts like breadcrumbs through a dark forest. Still, one post had seized Reynolds' attention, a photograph of a young Emily smiling, tagged with a message hinting at regret. Wishing things were different. The phrase echoed hauntingly in Reynolds' mind, forming an unsettling connection to recent events. He grabbed his jacket and headed toward the motel where Marcus was staying, eager to question him again, while the ember of a lid still burned bright. As he entered the modest establishment, the stale air mixed with hints of cleaning detergent assaulted his senses. Reynolds' mind raced with the possibilities that could exist behind closed doors, fueled by the trampling heart of a town longing for justice. He approached the front desk to request Marcus's room. The clerk offered a nod, her expression casual but her eyes wary. Reynolds couldn't shake the sensation that something about Marcus felt off. "Room 12, she whispered, as if sharing a well-kept secret. Reynolds moved down the dimly lit corridor and knocked decisively on the door. "Marcus Tate, I need to speak with you." The silence that followed was heavy, tension thickening in the air like smoke coiling around a flame. Just as Reynolds considered his next move, the door creaked open. Marcus stood there, wearing an ashen face that contradicted the bravado he'd displayed during the earlier interrogation. "What do you want?" he asked, fidgeting slightly as if contemplating a hasty escape. "Mind if I come in?" Reynolds replied, stepping past him before Marcus could object. The room was Spartan, filled with the faint smell of cheap cologne. Reynolds noticed the way Marcus's eyes darted toward the open window, as if escape routes soaked up the light around him. "I just need to clarify a few things," Reynolds said, crossing his arms, his gaze steady and piercing. "You mentioned seeing Emily's phone, but what about the last text she received?" Marcus's posture stiffened, voice wavering slightly. "I told you I was just trying to reconnect." Reynolds kept his tone measured, relentless. "It's important, Marcus. Did you meet up with her that night?" Stammering, Marcus glanced once again toward the window, and for the first time, a flicker of fear crossed his expression a moment, so raw it evoked doubt. "I didn't hurt her. I swear," he exclaimed, eyes wide, desperation clawing at the edges of his voice. But there was a crack in his defensiveness. Reynolds pressed on. "But you felt something for her, didn't you? Something deeper, perhaps." As words hung in the charged air, the implicit tension unveiled a chilling truth. The spark of jealousy that could ignite in a troubled mind. Reynolds stepped closer, sensing that the shadows blanketing Maplewood might have finally revealed a glimpse of the man who had harbored dark emotions. Everything hinged on the next confession, a fragile thread woven through the fabric of a relationship long buried, yet still painfully alive. Would the true nature of Marcus's connection to Emily be the key to unlocking the mystery of her tragic end? The trial. The courtroom was brimming with tension as the trial of Marcus Tate commenced. Witnesses filed in, friends and family of Emily Thompson, their faces a blend of sorrow and resolve as they anticipated the unfolding narrative. The specter of Emily's life haunted the sturdy wood-paneled walls, a palpable reminder of the loss that had gripped Maplewood. Detective Reynolds sat among the rows of onlookers, heart pounding as he observed the proceedings. The sun filtering through high windows cast long shadows, a visual metaphor for the haunting questions that had yet to find their answers. Every voice echoed with the weight of memories, tethered to the vibrant life stolen in a single moment. The prosecution laid out its case meticulously, painting a vivid picture of the scrubbed-away innocence of Maplewood. Emily's friends took the stand, their words laced with grief as they recounted her kindness, her bright spirit, and the unease they felt following her murder. Each testimony felt like a striking note in a symphony of sorrow, a tapestry woven from stories of laughter and love. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. The prosecution's spotlight shifted to Marcus. His demeanor was a mix of bravado and desperation, his eyes betraying a flicker of vulnerability beneath a mask of defiance. "You reconnected with Emily after years apart," the prosecutor began, tone pointed. "What drew you back to her?" "Just wanted to catch up," Marcus insisted, though the quiver in his voice betrayed uncertainty. "It wasn't supposed to be, like that." Reynolds leaned forward, feeling the pulse of the room as each word tumbled out. Witnesses recounted the youthful connections, but threads of jealousy and the unrequited nature of Marcus's feelings painted a stark portrait of anger beneath the surface of canvas, splattered with hints of desperation. With each passing day of the trial, it felt like the echoes of Emily's laughter were being replaced by shaky accounts of heartache, unresolved emotions spiraling into something dark. The defense sought to dismantle the prosecution's narrative, insisting on Marcus's innocence. They painted him as a lovelorn man ensnared by circumstances beyond his control. The final day arrived, and Reynolds sat nervously as the closing statements summated the emotional barrage of testimonies. The jury retreated to deliberate, and a heavy silence blanketed the courtroom. It felt like an eternity before they returned, eyes solemn as they took their seats. "Have you reached a verdict?" the judge inquired, voice steady, as collective breath was held throughout the room. "Yes, Your Honor," the foreman of the jury replied, voice strong yet somber. "We find the defendant, Marcus Tate, guilty of second-degree murder." Gasps uprooted from the audience like a sudden gust of wind, the air quaking with emotion. Reynolds felt the weight of release wash over him, a bittersweet sense of justice punctuated by the heavy remembrance of a life extinguished too soon. As Marcus was led away, the whispers of the courtroom faded into a solemn echo. Justice had been served, but the scars remained the loss of a friend, a sister, a vibrant light, snuffed out by envy and misunderstanding. Maplewood would carry the burden of this tragedy, woven into its community fabric, a reminder of the fragility of life and the shadows that could linger just beneath the surface. In the coming weeks, Reynolds would continue to reflect on the trial, the evidence gathered, and the emotions forged from law. Emily Thompson would forever resonate within the hearts of those who knew her, a beloved figure in a town that had to reconcile both its innocence and the darkness that occasionally crept unnoticed into their lives. The aftermath. The verdict reverberated through Maplewood, a town stilled in shock, yet somehow set into motion. Marcus Tate's conviction sent ripples through the community, prompting conversations that ranged from relief to deep reflection. Detective Reynolds sat in his office, sifting through the aftershocks of the trial, grappling with a complex mix of emotions. Emily's absence was palpable, a void that could not be filled. The library, once a gathering place filled with laughter and chatter, became a sanctuary of mourning. Penny Caldwell, Emily's closest friend, implemented a memorial section in the library dedicated to her life and passion for literature. The display, encased in glass, featured Emily's favorite books and photographs that captured her radiant spirit. On the opening day, townsfolk gathered, their hearts heavy yet smiling as they remembered the light she had brought to their lives. As gym shoes crunched against fallen leaves, Reynolds returned often to the park where Emily had last been seen. He'd sit on the same bench, staring at the dense trees, hoping to glimpse some understanding in the quiet rustle of the leaves. The echoes of laughter, he remembered now, intertwined with feelings of dread. This juxtaposition became a testament to the duality of Maplewood, a town of joy, overshadowed suddenly by tragedy. The community began to heal, banding together in support groups to address both their grief and the fear that lingered. They shared their stories, offered comfort to one another, and slowly, they began to rebuild their sense of safety in a place that had felt shattered. Reynolds attended meetings, finding solace in the shared resilience of the townspeople. The weight of his thoughts lightened slightly as he offered guidance, affirming their feelings and the necessity for truth in the wake of horror. The months that followed shaped a renewed commitment to community safety. A neighborhood watch formed, and town meetings grew in popularity, a fervor ignited by determination to ensure that every resident felt secure. Conversations about mental health flourished, revealing the oft-overlooked fragility behind Maplewood's peaceful exterior. Yet, a sense of unfinished business clung to Reynolds. While justice had been served, he remained haunted by the question of what had driven Marcus to such an extreme. With each passing day, society continued to overlook deeper issues: mental health, unresolved jealousy, the consequences of past relationships left unchecked. He knew it was essential to carry forward not only Emily's memory, but also the lessons learned from her tragic end. In searching for closure, Reynolds unleashed a personal project working with legislators to address local mental health resources, aligning them with community outreach initiatives. He believed that tackling these issues head-on would prevent tragedies like Emily's from becoming a haunting norm in Maplewood. As spring unfurled its vibrant colors, the town began to blossom anew. The park was alive with activity. Children's laughter punctured the air alongside sunlit chatter. While the past could neither be forgotten nor erased, it forged a connection that rallied the good within their hearts, birthing resilience that threaded intricately through the fabric of Maplewood. In the quiet moments, when Reynolds found himself sitting alone amidst the flora, he would close his eyes and think of Emily, the girl who loved books, who brought smiles to faces, whose life echoed in the hearts of those she touched. It was in these reflections that he discovered a sense of purpose, honoring her memory by fostering a community of understanding, where darkness could find solace in light, and where love could grow even from the deepest wounds. Reflection. As the seasons continued their march through time, Detective Reynolds found himself at a crossroads of contemplation. With the weight of Emily's case resting heavily on his heart, he often returned to the things he knew: the echoes of laughter, the warmth of community gatherings, and the bittersweet surge of grief that tightened its grip each day. The quiet moments offered him clarity, a chance to rally his thoughts, to connect the dots between tragedy and resilience. Maplewood had changed, and yet it had not. The town still glimmered beneath the surface, its beauty evident in every dawn. Families thrived in its embrace, stories of Emily often retold during gatherings, keeping her spirit alive. Yet the conversation surrounding mental health, sparked by sorrow, had become an integral part of everyday life. Sitting on that same bench in the park, Reynolds reflected on the echoes of Emily's laughter, a sound that would forever resonate in his heart. He recalled the fear that gripped the town after her murder, raw emotions that morphed into communal strength, both as a remembrance of what had been lost and a determination to cultivate a safer future. The shadows of fear once lingered, but they began to recede, replaced by an awareness of the fragility of those connections that bind a community. Emily's legacy did not end with her tragedy. It blossomed into a call for change, illuminating the path toward understanding, compassion, and honesty. In the quiet weavings of the park's foliage, Reynolds understood that loss was neither wasted nor forgotten. Rather, it was a canvas upon which resilience could paint hope. With every conversation held, every initiative launched, he honored Emily's memory, a tribute larger and more enduring than any courtroom verdict, echoing through the heart of Maplewood for years to come.